Special guest today, Nihal Mehta, founding partner of Eniac.
Eniac,
sorry. I like was working on
that. You were close.
Eniac Ventures, investing into tech and startups and mobiles and seed stage round. He has a very, very great resume, we could say. Just to list off a few. Thank you for being here, by the way. I'm pretty excited. I got to get the rust off, you know. EY Entrepreneur of the Year finalist. People Insider's 100 coolest people in tech. That might be the best one you got there. Tech influencer in New York City. Top New York City people in tech scene. Founded 5 tech startups. Published 15 books, multiple white papers, and a highly successful investor. So as we get this started, can you bring us back, give us a little context before Eniac, and you know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs in here, startups. Very, you know, bring us back where you started, where they are right now, and you know, right out of Penn, I think you turned down a job at Goldman Sachs to get your startup career going and your entrepreneurial career going. Can you jump into that? Start off with.
That's right. Charlie, thanks for having me, and great to see everybody here, all the way on the top tiers of where the camera can't see.
Yeah, exactly.
There must be 2 million people here in the audience.
Can you turn on the lights back there?
Can't even see way up there. It's amazing.
Jeez.
Wow. Humbling experience.
Yes.
That's right. I was lucky to start my career in entrepreneurship, you know, as an accident, as most people do. I was a DJ in college, and my roommate and I were playing events and throwing parties, basically, in college, as people do. The year was 1999, and so you know, this thing called the internet was just starting to gain a lot of momentum, and we started just emailing our friends where we were playing, where we were DJing in the city of Philadelphia, and then we said, this is taking too much time. Let's just set up a site on the World Wide Web, right? And so we published a website for essentially an entertainment guide or resource in the city of Philadelphia. And so that company, it actually became my senior thesis and my roommate's senior thesis as a way to kind of just like do less work, basically. And we launched a website. It was called phillytonight.com. And of course, we were all in the recruiting funnel in college, and we both got, you know, great job offers. I'm very proud of the offer letter I signed, but never worked at a day in my life, right, with Goldman Sachs. You know, I figured might as well try to start this company.
Right.
Take a leap. I mean, for context, in '99, if you were to scribble kind of .com on a napkin, you could cobble together a bunch of money, right? It was a hot thing to do. Not unlike certain sectors today, more than 20 years later, like machine learning or robotic process automation. And there are very hot sectors we'll talk maybe a little bit about today, where the same type of rules apply. Back then, it was just a website, a .com, right? And all of a sudden, you're able to garner investment. But anyway, we cobbled together $1 million from mostly Indian uncles and aunties in our network.
There you go.
You know, checks were as small as, you know, $5,000, right? We cobbled together. Just literally, it's fundraising. By the way, is never fun. It's a necessary evil, no matter where you are, who you are, whether you're a public company CEO or a startup in a dorm room, or a venture capitalist, by the way. And so we had to cobble together that money, and we launched our first company. That was over 20 years ago.
Pretty successful. You grew it. It worked out for you.
Actually, that one went bankrupt.
Okay, it did work out. The next one, though. I mean, you didn't give up there, though. You went to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to butcher the name of this.
Yeah.
IPSH.
IPSH. That's right. So the quick story there, by the way, which is actually something we look for in entrepreneurs now as an investor, is I was very lucky to have failed fast and failed first. And what we tell other entrepreneurs to do is fail as quickly as you can. Ideally, not on our dime, right? Fail on your own dime first, and then come to no. But I was lucky to have had an epic failure, right? Philly Tonight raised $1 million. We spent it very well. Obviously, we had billboards on I-95 in Philly, commercials on MTV. All of a sudden, 2001 came around. There was a big .com crash. Nobody was able to raise more money. We had maybe 10 grand of revenue in the entire business. And it wasn't aligned with our business model, which was online advertising. This is, by the way, pre-Google. So we were selling ads directly to venues. It was for building like some random Indian uncle a website, right, for $10,000. So totally not aligned with our business model. But anyway, we couldn't support our 40 employees and our lush whatever offices, and so we had to wind back all the way down. We had $500,000 of debt on our balance sheet. You know, I was 22 years old, so we had no other option but to actually file Chapter 7 on the business. And that was an incredibly humbling experience, especially being a son of an immigrant. Those Indian uncles and aunties that gave us the money, I was like kind of the laughing stock of the community, right? Those Diwali New Year parties, where the same uncles and aunties were like, that kid filed for bankruptcy, you know, in a bad Indian accent. But you know, that was really humbling. But the good thing is you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and when you've experienced that failure and you've seen it in its face, all right, and you can overcome it, then a feeling of resilience and you know, overcomes you, and you feel like you can do anything, right? Because you've already experienced the worst. And I think I was very lucky to have experienced that in my very first business. I was like, if this is the worst that can happen, bring it on, right? And by the way, the human body is very interesting. The human mind is very interesting. You adapt things called muscle memory based on your scar tissue. And believe it or not, you will subconsciously avoid a lot of the pitfalls that you committed, the mistakes that you made the second time around, third time around, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so your businesses do get better over time, and your decisions should get better over time, just naturally, just unconsciously. And so anyway, I was very lucky to have failed at that business. We declared bankruptcy, actually bought the assets back. We moved to San Francisco. The asset that I bought back was a mobile software technology that actually helped send text messages to consumers. We used it at Philly Tonight to actually send text to folks to let them know what was going on in the city.
For parties,
for parties, and then we pivoted, made it a B2B platform, so we were able to use it for brands. We actually started with artists like Nelly and Madonna, who actually were customers. Madonna joined our board with that company, which was a whole nother story. And that became a successful SaaS enterprise business. The cool thing is those Indian uncles and aunties I gave equity into the new company for. They already had a chance to write up that investment, and so that business was then acquired in 2005 by Omnicom Group here in New York. But that journey was, 6 years through a bankruptcy. When I moved to San Francisco, I was paying rent from my favorite pastime, which was DJing, a couple of times a week, and just working on the business during the day. But that was like my first cycle of business, and I learned. I got my MBA during that period, on the street with that real experience, and that was, for sure, very impressive on my career.
Before we jump to the other three or wherever we go with this, what were some of the pitfalls from that first one that you learned? That, you dust yourself off, you get back up, and you start a successful business bought by Omnicom.
There's so many pitfalls. I mean, the biggest one was, if you can be frugal with capital, and essentially if you can start generating revenue, without even, or at least seeing a business model, seeing semblance of some sort of a full stack business model before taking any investor capital, then you're much better off, right, with that. That capital constraint actually creates a lot more innovation. And when you have a bunch of money in the bank account and you're spending without really attributing the right value to that capital. And so, of course, we were young, and we didn't really understand the value of that capital until it didn't exist, right? So a lot of investors talk about that capital as a constraint. And actually, when we invest now in seed rounds, we make sure the entrepreneur has, typically 12 to 18 months of capital with the money that we're giving them, but no more, because we want to make sure they can get to the next stage. The next stage after where we invest is the Series A on that constrained capital, right? If they have 5 years of money, then it doesn't create that that pressure that an entrepreneur needs.
And drive.
And the drive, right, to be hungry. So anyway, I think that's one of the pitfalls that we learned very early. Yeah. A positive learning was, which is even more pronounced today, which I encourage every entrepreneur to do, and most folks still don't do, is that people in very high places, in very influential places, are extremely accessible, more than you would think. And if you have role models or idols, today you have Twitter, and you can just literally right now reach out to them and tweet at them. And they probably won't respond, but after like 10 times, they'll say, who the fuck are you? Like, stop tweeting me. All right, you want a coffee meeting? Whatever it is, right? So we learned that in college, actually. We had an opportunity at Penn. It's an incredible entrepreneur. He had just sold this company. Everybody in this room knows who this person is, but I'll lead it on a little bit. He had just sold this company, Zip2, to Dispatch, and he was talking about his experience. We connected with him, and we were super inspired. He actually had a McLaren F1 parked outside, and he had a super hot girlfriend, and everybody in that room was like, I want to be this guy, right? He's got this fast car, and this, and this girlfriend, and this business, and he's just made all this money, and it was 1998, so this is like a pretty new, the tech, industry was just emerging. And so we immediately surrounded him and brought him on our board. He was starting a company called X.com at that time. And board meetings were very fun with this man because, we'd be allotted like 30 minutes, whatever, an hour. He'd say all his comments over a few minutes and then just like leave. But by the way, those few minutes of comments were worth like months of data that we kept on thinking about. So X.com merged with PayPal, was acquired by eBay. This entrepreneur took the money off eBay and put it into 3 companies, Tesla, SpaceX, and SolarCity. And this is Elon Musk. And so we just went up to him, and he became an advisor, and he was, he's been kind of a role model in the sense, not that he ever talks to us ever now, but he probably remembers us,
sure.
From back in the day. But just, going up to somebody and talking to them, I think people are not, there's too much fear, and today there's so much more access, obviously on LinkedIn, but Twitter, cold emails. You'd be surprised that everybody anywhere are usually very receptive.
Yeah, we like to jump on the mentor aspect of this. He seems to be a mentor that stood out to you.
Yeah.
What was one of the main things you learned from him and took away, and maybe you bring with your team and share with other people in your portfolios?
Yeah, I mean, I think, no pun intended, but when you shoot for the stars, you land on the moon. No pun meaning his company, SpaceX, as well. I mean, I think thinking big, right? Thinking like with immense ambition, and knowing that, you're probably definitely not going to get there. But when you kind of change your trajectory to that type of ambition, then great things happen, right? You end up attracting ambitious investors. You end up recruiting and attracting an amazing team. And by the way, if you can pull off 5% of that amazing business, it could be an amazing company. So I think that's one thing to learn from Elon, and we continue to be impressed, right, every day, reading about what he accomplishes to the next, at the next stage of every business he's running. So
before we get into Eniac, anything else you want to touch on? I mean, you had Buzz, you had LocalResponse, your investments throughout that process with Uber, Tapad, a few companies acquired, but anything else that you learned, any good stories along that process that helped you get to Eniac?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of good stories for sure. I can tell the Madonna story real quick.
Yeah, I could listen to that.
So we had a few artists using this mobile technology, and we wanted, you know, as a DJ especially, we would, you know, infinitely sample, you know, Madonna into, you know, into a bunch of stuff, and so this would be an amazing marquee customer if we were able to land her label. And so in San Francisco, it was persistence, phone call, fax, email, phone call, fax, email. You guys remember what a fax is or what a fax is? Anyway, finally scored a meeting with a record label in Burbank, California. Rented a car, drove down from San Francisco, and I was pitching this mobile marketing for Madonna to this woman. And about 40 minutes into the presentation, she said, wait, I don't understand what you're talking about. How many trucks do you have in your fleet? The year's 2003, so this is, you know, 17 years ago. And I said, what do you mean trucks in the fleet? I'm talking about mobile phone text message marketing. She said, well, mobile marketing is putting Madonna's face on a truck and driving around the country. And that's how we sell records, right? I was like, I got this rent-a-car, we're not doing any of this stuff. And, you know, I was like kind of dejected. I tried so hard to get this meeting, you know, and went through this pitch, and it didn't connect. But she said, there might be somebody in the room next door that you might want to talk to. And it was Guy Osiri, Madonna's manager, and they were just doing a big ad buy for her album at that time, American Life. And I met him, and we ended up integrating our mobile technology into this ad buy, and that was a breakthrough. For the album went to #1, and for our company. But I think the moral of the story is, you know, luck is when, you know, persistence meets opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that was a lucky break, but you can create your own breaks in entrepreneurship, and that's just working hard. You know, work ethic is incredibly important, but seeing those opportunities, right? Because that opportunity was amazing. What are the chances that Madonna's manager would be in the room next door from a failed meeting? But the more shots you put up on the board, the more opportunities you can create for yourself, right? And so I think that was a lesson for me on how to create breaks. And every entrepreneur needs that break, because it's a roller coaster every single day, right? Whereas the highs of the high and the lows of the low, and it happens 10 times an hour. But to be able to create those breaks for yourself is literally how we thrive. And so now as an investor, you know, we try to help create breaks for entrepreneurs.
Right, so let's talk about that. 2009, started Eniac Ventures.
Yeah.